My guest today is Tiffany Thanor, the CEO and co-founder of Wonder Here. With a degree in elementary education and 15 years of teaching experience, Tiffany has dedicated her life to cultivating meaningful learning spaces and programs. After years of teaching and chairing various committees, Tiffany discerned that true educational change would require exiting the over-mandated mechanism of public school to test new theories and experiment with other practices. Enter Wonder Here. 9 years later, through writing, curriculum, research, and development, and leading the growing Wonder Here community, Tiffany has had the opportunity to serve hundreds of families and educators in pursuit of educational freedom for all. Tiffany Thanor, welcome to the LiberatED podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here. There's so many things that we could start with, but I'd love to just start, I guess, with having you share a bit about what Wonder Here is, because it's very multifaceted, multiple locations.
Yeah,
You are based in Florida, but you have a new program in South Carolina, and
yeah,
you're serving homeschooling families. You have sort of community building aspects. There's a micro school
yeah,
component, lots of amazing things. So let's start with what Wonder Here is, and
yeah.
then we'll work our way back to your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, sure. There are a lot of different aspects to Wonder Here. So when anyone asks, like, what is Wonder Here? I say, oh, you have an hour. Let me tell you
Yeah.
about it. But if I were to explain it in a short way, I would just say we're an educational company organization. We are in the business of research. We do have a school in Central Florida. We have opened another location in South Carolina. We write curriculum, we do all kinds of things, but really the core of what we really do is experiment with education. We really are, we believe in play and project-based learning. And so we've been working for 9 years, our team, to discover if play and project-based learning really is meaningful. Can it work? Can it substitute the standardized education that we use frequently across traditional spaces, and see if we can infuse more wonder and joy into learning, which is why we call ourselves Wonder Here. And here is anywhere. It can be at our school, but it can be at your home. It can be out in nature, just wherever here is for you. We believe wonder is the beginning of learning. So
I love it. And so for the two school spaces that you
yeah,
have in Florida and South Carolina, you're serving kind of pre-K and elementary school
yeah,
students. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about those programs, how they're structured,
yeah.
how families interact there.
Yeah, so our structures are very similar. So we have our Lakeland location, which is where we started. And so when we first began, we didn't even call ourselves a school. We said we would be a learn and play studio because the word school was a bad word for
Mhm.
us. Jessica, who is our co-founder, who couldn't be on this call with us, she just had baby.
Oh,
But she and
congratulations to her.
yeah, she's so happily at home with baby. But she and I were in the same public school and really dreaming of something else that we could do, trying to build. So we started out as a learn and play studio to do just to experiment with play and learning in little classes. And so we started with that, and then we grew on and tacked on all of our different programs. But our preschool program we call minis. And so we tell our families that our minis program is non-academic, it's social and emotional, until we get into the elementary and middle school spaces. And then we do begin a more intentional academic focus. And South Carolina models exactly like we do here in Lakeland. So we spend a lot of time making sure our process works really well here in Florida. And then we were able to duplicate that and train an entire different team and other leaders to own and operate teachers, former teachers, to begin their own Wonder Here. So we don't run that Wonder Here. We trained
Mm.
and empowered them, and they run it, and they just license our name and all of it, the things that we do.
Okay, and it's not just preschool, it's elementary too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
elementary, preschool, and middle school.
and middle school.
Yeah.
Amazing. And are you and the other teachers that you're activating to run their own programs, are the students homeschoolers? Are these private schools? How have you structured?
Yeah, so yes and yes.
Yes.
um, so it depends on your state. But in the state of Florida, we have a ton of freedom and
Mm,
flexibility with our homeschool law and our private school law. So we operate under both avenues, and we leave the choice to the parents.
yeah.
So we have a part-time program where our kids leave at 12:30, and so those kiddos would be considered homeschooled. And even some of those kids kind of a la carte the days. They don't come every day, or they might. And then our private school kids will come Monday through Friday, every day, all day. But we tell our parents, even if they come all day, Monday through Friday, they receive a homeschooled styled education, and they only receive 50% of that day is academic in the classroom. We are on a farm, so they do farming, gardening, and a ton of open-ended play.
Oh, neat. Can we
Yeah.
can you elaborate on that a little bit about the
Yeah.
farming component? Is that just that you were lucky enough to be able to find space at a farm, or is that kind of integrated into your model?
Yeah. When we started, it's definitely not how we've grown, but with any kind of new thing, especially something innovative and in the educational space, um, just trying to adapt with our people and the environment. And
Mm,
so when we first started, we were just eager to get started. So we rented downtown space in a storefront, and that
mm.
was great. But as we grew, we realized, oh yeah, there aren't any windows in this building. And oh, yeah, we don't have a ton of outside space. In fact, we fenced in a backyard, the parking, so our kids would have at least an opportunity to get outside, but it was, concrete. Um, and then COVID actually happened, and everyone was looking for outdoor space. And no one wanted to meet indoors. Everybody was looking for an outdoor space to meet. And that was kind of our light bulb moment. And that was 4 years into Wonder Here. It was like, oh, maybe we do need a bit of green space. Maybe nature is an important component we've been lacking. So we were just looking for a little bit of space, and we happened upon 10 acres
Oh,
available in our town, and we jumped on it. And it had a barn, it had a big pasture, a huge wooded area, and then two homes on the property that we've converted into school. And we've always been like a one-room schoolhouse kind of style. So every room in that home is a classroom. And then they do go out. They have we hired because we cannot be good at everything, so you need to partner with people who are good at the other things. So we partnered with an excellent woman who has a huge background in agriculture and gardening and farming,
mm,
and so she directs that side of our programming. But our kids they go out and do farm chores, they do gardening, we do wilderness classes, we have toddler farm school, we have all kinds of stuff happening on the farm. And the school, you get to go to school on the farm, you also will engage with all of that.
amazing. And are you leasing that farm space or did you purchase it?
No, we own it.
Oh
Yeah,
my
we purchased it
gosh.
as a school. Yeah.
Oh wow, that sounds dreamy. So
We
okay,
love it.
let's back up then, Tiffany, and find and hear more about your path from being a teacher. You were a teacher in Title I schools, serving low-income families. And tell us about that experience and kind of what ultimately led to your decision to become an education entrepreneur.
Yeah. Um, I think for me, I've always dreamed of being a teacher. When you're a little girl and everyone asks, what are you going to be when you grow up? You're like, I'm going to be a teacher. I just knew that's what I was called to do and what I was designed to do. And I like to say it's like the one thing I'm good at. I'm like, I know I can do a lot of things, but teaching I can do. And so I was excited to become a teacher. I interned at the school. I graduated, interned there, and then got a teaching job inside of that school. And I was like thrilled. It was like dream that my principal, my administration, amazing. The team I got to teach with, amazing. It was a dream. But we were also kind of in an interesting space because our school was, in the state of Florida. We have like letter grades for schools and different things, and depending on your letter grades, the amount of how much of a mandate comes down on your school, and that kind of decides how much freedom you have.
Yeah.
So we were a pretty good school. We were an A school, then a B school, but those are good things in Florida. So we were living a pretty good life. I had a lot of freedom inside of my classroom, had the ability to be very creative. Um, and then our state did some changing, and they did some rezoning, a lot of different things, and our school grade began to change. And as our school grade dipped, the culture of our school was still the same. Still had an awesome administrator, still had brilliant, wonderful kids, But the state didn't recognize that. And they began to place mandates that we did not find to be beneficial to our kids. I have a bit of a stubborn streak, maybe, and a little rebellion in my heart when I am asked and required to do things I know don't benefit the students I teach. So, you shut your door and do what you do best, and my results would still be good. And I wouldn't sacrifice joy in my classroom because of it. Um, my final year in teaching, Jessica, who is our co-founder, she actually was teaching in the same school, and that year was the most unfortunate year. Our school grade dipped to a D. We were under this matrix where the state came in more frequently, a lot more different requirements. So we were told, and my kid was second grade, so no coloring,
Mm.
no recess, no extended breaks. We had the 100 and what was it 120-minute uninterrupted reading break, and going to the library didn't count as reading break, reading time. It wasn't just so we began to feel the oppression inside of our classroom. And then one of my students, who I've always known to be really brilliant, but it didn't show up on paper. But I knew this little boy was brilliant. But he was sitting next to me in class, and we were doing another test and another test to prove that we were growing, because they had all the mandates. So we had a lot more paperwork to prove that our scores were going to go up. So we were doing another test and another test, and he looked at me and he was like, "Oh, Miss Sonora, I hate school. I hate school. I'm dumb. I hate school." And I texted his mom, and that day, and was like, "Hey, I'm going to homeschool him. We're going to withdraw him. I don't know what we're going to do, but we're not doing this again." And she said, "Okay." And so I put in my resignation. I talked to Jess, and she was feeling the same tensions in her classroom, and we just knew we needed to do something different. So that little boy was my first student at Wonder Here, our first enrolled student at Wonder Here.
Amazing. And you are also a homeschooling mom yourself. And
Yeah.
so you also began to see kind of personally the ways in which education could look different from kind of the standard model. And it's so common. This is the common theme I hear from founders like you, the majority of whom that I've had on my podcast are former public school teachers who grow frustrated by the standardization, test-driven, kind of
Yeah.
top-down model that crushes your, creativity and curiosity as much as it does the students that you work
Yeah.
with. And you talked earlier about how you created Wonder here as sort of an antidote to that model, especially one that is focused on play and project-based learning. And I think about the statistic now nationally that says that for elementary school students, the average recess time they get is 25 minutes. And
Yeah.
then what you were saying is that in some cases, they're not even getting that. I mean,
No.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's really, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's it feels like we're in like an insane matrix
Yeah.
because there's far too much knowledge and research to show the research scientific proof that play is powerful for kids. Like we know that this is true. You cannot argue that play does not matter. It's the natural language of children. It
Right.
is how they work out their curiosity and their problem solving, their critical thinking skills. It all happens in play. When our teachers take a step back and we're not the ones being a talking head in the classroom, allowing space for children to ask and play, and that all happens. That's where learning really comes, and that stuff doesn't show up on paper. But because it's not measured, and we cannot put a letter grade on it, the people in suits and ties, the kinds of people who make the decisions, don't value what can't be captured on paper.
Right.
So yeah, and when you look at the different states and how they play, because some of our states, I remember in Florida when we went through in our county, we went through all of the legislation changed to mandate play and recess, at least at 23 minutes, for kids that are like K1, 2, because we didn't have it before at all. And mothers came and started advocating that we would have a required recess time. But the caveat to that is it still gets taken away if your kids don't finish their schoolwork, and it's still dictated by teachers. Sometimes I'll walk on a campus and their recess time is drawing geometric shapes. Like, that's not recess. That's mandated by the teacher. I love the chalk and being outside, but real play has to be decided by the child. And it has to be without the grown-ups' input. That's what play has to be for you to get all of that research-based benefit that we know exists. But people, we want paper, pencil, we want to measure every minute because, our standard education system believes that the more time kids sit at a desk, the more learning will occur. But, that's not really what happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, was it really a light bulb moment for you with this conversation with this boy's mom and saying, all right, we're going to start a school? Or had you been thinking about doing something different?
Yeah, no, even that school year, which was 2016, was my last. So we started in summer of 2016, we started summer camp. But that school year, I had a baby and my first baby. And I came back to school that school year, and my principal asked, are you going to stay at home? And I just said, no, I love teaching. I will be here. And that baby was born in August. I came back to school like weeks after to begin that school year. And I had fully intended to remain. I was very content. But that school year was the year we dipped in the grades, and I
Mm,
began to see the other side of education that I had not seen yet. Up until that school year, we operated with a lot more freedom than other
mm.
schools did in our title that were Title One. So when I got to see the underbelly of this giant of an education system, I was really disappointed. And so yeah, no, that school year I completed that school year, but didn't come back in the next fall.
So, did you immediately launch Wonder Here, or did you have this sort of startup phase? I guess how
Yeah.
long did it take from idea to launch for you?
Well, I moved pretty quick, and Jessica is, she has a brilliant ideas, and she has the other half of the brain of Wonder here. So I'll say like, "Hey, I need us to do this thing," and then she can help create the safeguards and help us to get it done. So between the two of us, we moved pretty fast. So that conversation happened in the first half of the school year. So by December, we had decided we were not going to return in the next school year. We opened an LLC on the computer.
Yeah.
I put in my resignation, but of course, finishing the school year. So I let my principal know so she would have the semester to fill the spot for the new school year. So I let her know after the school year ends, I'll be doing something different. So we had about 6 months to launch. And we knew we wanted to launch during summertime because we wanted to do educational summer camp.
Yeah.
And that would be a way to introduce the community to our idea. So we opened that summer, and then that summer helped us to open that school year.
So smart. Yeah, to start with a summer camp or an after
Yeah.
school program or both. Because you're right, that's the way of getting your name out there, getting people familiar
Yeah.
with it. Maybe they can test out the waters a little bit.
Yeah.
So, how many students did you open with? I guess this was the fall of 2017. Is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah. How many?
2016, fall of 2016. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started with 7 students.
Okay.
7 students in our little storefront space. The next year we doubled and we took over the next door space, knocked down a wall. And this year we have about 110 kids every day, but we serve over 200 because we have so many different programs that some of our kids come for different things. And then, of course, we have a really big summer camp that sells out every summer. And that summer camp, we see about 100 kids a week. So,
Amazing. So, in addition to one of your success matrix being or metrics being this high demand and growth and retention, I'm curious how you sort of measure success, right? Because you made the important point that, for example, you had this brilliant second grader
yeah,
who didn't, perform well on paper, but you knew he was super smart.
yeah.
So, how are you able to show that in an innovative education environment? What are some alternative ways beyond standardized testing, beyond sort of these traditional measurement systems to show, yeah, your students are learning, they're thriving. This is a special place.
Yeah, it has taken years. We have been fortunate to have been in existence for 9 years, but we have had 300 iterations of Wonder here in those 9 years. So I like to tell people that we are in the business of research because we are constantly innovating and experimenting to see what works. You know, in a traditional model, you kind of get this one stagnant thing we all know doesn't work, but we won't change it. But at Wonder here, we are constantly innovating to ensure that it is yielding good result. So I love talking about progress monitoring because it's probably been the area that where we continue to work the hardest. And every now and then our team will sit together and we still ask, you know, this is working, where do we need to change, what should we try next, you know? So our parents are very used just like sending out an email, hey, an update to our program. But what we do a couple of things. One, we know not all meaningful learning happens on paper, so we train our parents. So from the moment you enroll to the moment throughout the school year, we have a lot of ways we train. We do workshops, which we require parents to attend. Those workshops help our parents to understand our language and why we do what we do. We also require our parents to be in our building at least once a quarter because we don't do report cards. So in lieu of report cards, you need to come physically be in the building and you can watch real learning as it occurs. So we do portfolios, which are our favorite, where we do a collection of authentic work samples. And in addition to portfolios, we have portfolio night. So every time we do a portfolio, which is once a quarter, we have a portfolio night, which the kids come and it's kind of science fair style, where they have to demonstrate, they lay out for you their best work samples for reading, writing, and math, and they do a project and they have them on display and they stand there and their parents are equipped with a list of questions that ask like the growth mindset questions, not what is this? Why did you do it? But what did you do that was hard? Where would you edit and revise? What kind of where do you still have gaps in your learning? What questions are remaining? Would you continue? Really deep questions that we ask parents to not only ask their children about, but also other children.
Hmm.
So portfolio night is a big night where you have a ton of parents milling around, kids talking professionally to adults and peers about their work that they've laid out. Why is this a good example of your work, same of your reading ability? Explain why you picked this as your example. So portfolio night, portfolios, and then we have our parents come in, and that helps as well. And then we also do benchmarks. So we do use benchmarks, which a lot of families, you know, that might be like a misconception. And you're like, oh, you're play based, you don't use benchmarks. We do love benchmarks. We just don't believe in standards. So none of our learning
What's
is,
the difference? Yeah, I was going to say,
yeah.
can you
So
describe that?
I will, yeah. So when I hear standard, I mean, by definition, it means same. So it's a grade level expectation for all kids based on their age. So we don't believe in standards, but we do believe in having benchmarks, which just is kind of like a goalpost, somewhere
Mm.
I'm going. Where are we headed? But those benchmarks are not based on grade levels. We don't even identify kids by grades. So we don't organize them in grade levels at all, but just by age group. So we have benchmarks that are ages 4 to 9. And so inside of these really wide benchmarks in the 9 to 14 are a huge list of skills that are developmentally appropriate for them beyond within that large age range. And so our parents understand when they look at their benchmarks, we identify what has been taught, where are they growing, and then you'll see a lot of benchmarks they haven't been introduced to yet, but we'll get there. And every child will get there at their own pace because everyone is all of their learning is personalized. So we have goals that we identify with the teacher and the parent. And so we'll say, okay, we're going to focus on these benchmarks, but you'll see a large field of benchmarks, which could be overwhelming if you're thinking, oh man, we better get all of them before the end of the year. That's not what we're communicating. We might take 3 years before you finish this list of benchmarks, but we're just setting goals. So yeah, we have a lot of ways we measure progress. We try to be different. We have to differentiate all of them. And you know, so yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is sort of one of the hallmarks, I think, of the innovative education space is just
Yeah.
these creative ways of measuring learning beyond the kind of standardized models that we've been accustomed to. And I think it's such a great contribution to kind of education reform more broadly. I hope that these models become more widespread, even within conventional classrooms, because they're so powerful. So, What do you think is driving your growth? I mean, you've had astonishing growth since your launch in 2017. Why are parents attracted to Wonder Here? How did you grow so much in just a short time?
Yeah, I when we sit down with parents, and we sit down with them a lot, and just in the structure of how we do things, we hear, there's the same kind of thing we hear from everyone. They are discontent with where they've been. They hope differently for their children. We talk a lot at school about preserving the joys and the wonders of childhood. We want that to be our story, that joy and wonder is preserved in childhood. And when you meet with parents who come to Wonder Here, that's what they're looking for. Some if they're older and they're coming in, kind of after they've already experienced public education or a more traditional setting, you'll hear, the light was dimming from them, or we began
Hmm.
to see they hated coming to school. We know that our kids are smart, but it wasn't being acknowledged inside of their classroom. They were receiving failing grades, which was crushing their spirit. So just all of the hard parts of school, and we just want to come in and remind kids, one, you're brilliant. Two, learning is fun. It's an adventure. This world is filled with wonder. We want you to enjoy it. So we have parents who come in that way, and then we have kids who come in at the very beginning. They've not experienced other educational learning spaces, and they come to Wonder Here because they hear we're on a farm. They hear we have a lot of fun. We are a play-based program, and so sometimes they're just testing us out. They're a little curious, maybe a little nervous.
Mm.
Um, about what this kind of different kind of school is, but we keep them, because they get to know us really quick.
Yeah. I love that. And what about financial accessibility? Florida is one of about a dozen states that has universal school choice policies that enable education funding to follow students. Florida has additional school choice funding for students with special needs that provides even more
Yeah.
funds for families. I'm curious how that has impacted your program.
Yes. Well, I will say two things. It has been really awesome for schools. Not well, it's been really awesome for parents to become more accessible. This is last year was the first year we accepted the ESA programs from our state. And all of the years previously, our families who came would have to fund privately to participate. So last year was our first year we kind of piloted the ESA programs to see how it could benefit our families. And we found two things. We found one, that it was a huge benefit to our families. More families were able to come, and families who had already attended but paid out of pocket. You could see them relax because now they know the funding was not coming directly from them. And so it relieved a lot of stress inside of our families, which is a benefit. The other end of that is it has added challenge to us as a school, because we've always been privately funded with our parents. We have had our finances very secure. We have been able to be very organized and controlled in how we manage things. But taking on that scholarship has come with a host of challenges because more than half of our population now, they pay their bills through that third party, which is, as you know, anything that's run by the government can be inconsistent, might not come on time. So there have been some challenges that has made it harder than we have had it in the past.
Yeah, this is a challenge
Yeah.
that is widespread across the country with the implementation of these programs, especially programs that have gone universal, because now there's just such a huge number of
Yeah.
families that are participating that in many ways the infrastructure is just not it hasn't kind of kept up with that.
Yeah.
It was one thing when it was a few thousand families, but when it's tens of thousands of families,
Yeah.
it's much more difficult. So that's what you're finding too. It's really in sort of the payout process, the implementation of kind of the release of funds,
Yeah.
basically, more in that end than anything else.
Yeah, I think I think what you're saying is really true. Last year, and when we spoke with somebody within that department, they'd said, I had explained, we've always been a little hesitant to take state scholarship because we operate independently and joyfully so. And I didn't want to open any doors, Pandora's box, because we have had our happy la la land on our farm. um, but last year we piloted taking on that scholarship, but it was also the first year that they made it universal.
Yes, yeah.
And they had also updated their website and changed their platform. So they were overwhelmed with the response and had a really hard time keeping up with it. Um, and so at that same time, we were just trying them out. And so we were very displeased with how everything was operated. And it's not how we typically run our school. So we were spending a lot more manpower hours trying to help parents allocate funds, get things on time, pay our
Yeah.
teachers on time while waiting for funds. So it was very messy. But I have noticed this year it has become a lot more smooth. I also just hope, with third parties running these big programs that are meant to benefit so many families, and rightfully so. These are their tax paying dollars. They should be able to use them for the school of their choice. It's just some measures of accountability. There were a lot of errors that kind of happened with the allocating. And when we would try to, ask about it, we would, there was just some issues with accountability,
Mhm.
and it's just the way that they do things. But I am
Yeah.
hopeful it will improve.
Yeah, I am hopeful too. And I think it's important for these hiccups to be voiced, because I think it's one way not only of making improvements to existing implementation efforts, but as more states expand school choice policies, that they'll be able to get ahead of it and
Yeah,
recognize that you got to be ready for a program that's going to
yeah,
10x in size overnight, and that can create some implementation hurdles. So,
yeah,
yeah, thanks for that. So, now, Tiffany, just kind of shifting gears, it sounds like you are now moving to scale and
mhm,
enable other entrepreneurial teachers in other parts of the country to open their own Wonder here. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that process. What's involved there? How do people
yeah.
connect with you if they want to join this incredible program? What is that process like?
Yeah, we're super excited. Our South Carolina location that opened this year was kind of like our pilot of opening new locations, where we were able to practice launching and training and launching them out. So we felt really confident after going through the different motions with them. So now we are working with two different locations, one in Davenport and another one in Georgia, to get them launched for the following school year. But we were really fortunate to receive a Next Steps grant from Vela. And
Great.
we had, yes, and I mean, Vela is just a phenomenal program and such a gift to people like us. But with Vela, we had pitched kind of the idea that we would use their grant funding to help do like a match funding thing, where a different leader would come to us. She would bring in something, we would bring some of the grant money together, and that amount would lead them on and help them to open. So we have an application on our website, and it's called Wonder There. So you can open a Wonder Here wherever you are, and they just have to apply. And if they're a good fit, we'll do a screening call and begin the ball with them. And we still have a little bit of grant funding left, because we want to make sure our goal was to open 3 to 5 by next year. So it's our real heart is, we know that there are educators just like us all across the country who are discontent inside of a classroom and have a desire to see change. And we have worked really hard to create a model that we know works. And we've worked out a lot of the kinks. And so now we feel very confident that we can package and send out other people, package our program and send other people out so that they can do their own thing in their state.
Ah, I love it. So is it a franchise model? Is it a licensing model? I guess what are the mechanics of it? What do the new founders have access to, and so on?
Yeah, so it's more of a licensing. They have access to everything. So they'll use our name. We build out with them a different social media channel. We help to build out their website. They use our team. We have our own legal team and accounting team and
Mm.
website team, and so we empower them with all of those tools. We even use a bit of that startup funding from the grant to help furnish their new building, put a deposit down, and then we go out. Well, they come to us and do a few weeks of training in our school where they get to see it, and then we'll follow them and do their grand opening, and then we'll keep following them for the rest of their time. So it's a whole a mechanism that we have developed. But yeah, they get everything that they need.
Ah, I love it. Yeah. And so and also for you as an entrepreneur, it's kind of taking your model to the next level. Now you're not just
Yeah,
running a school, you're running a network.
yeah.
And so, kind of going forward, do you imagine that the founders of these additional locations, they'll be kind of paying a fee to kind of
Mhm.
join into the network? And then
Yeah.
is there any kind of revenue sharing agreement, or is it just sort of a one-time licensing fee? How does that work for you?
Yeah, no, they will pay a one-time fee and then they will pay a share with their revenue share every month.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once they are profitable.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so great. I hope we see many Wonder Here's
No, thank
all
you.
across the country. And it sounds
Me
like
too.
folks can go to your website, which is wonderhere.com,
Yeah.
and learn more about that. And so, I guess maybe on a high level, where do you see not only Wonder Here going in the next 5 years, but how does it fit into the larger momentum around innovative education models?
Yeah. We When we started Wonder Here, we just wanted to prove that play-based learning had a place in education. That was really our goal. We accidentally started at school, but we started out with the goal of just being a place to research play. Um, we really believe in changing and revolutionizing education. And when we started in 2016, microschools was not a real word. We did not have the networks that there are now, and we felt very alone, but am kind of indignant in our decision to open and try, because we were fueled by our students and our passion. But now we have this huge community of people like us that have been rising up, leaving their classroom and starting these different beautiful models all around the nation. And it's really exciting. It's really exciting. And we want to be a part of change. We do want to grow our program, but we also realize that what is it, like 97% of American children still exist in public school. And so that's really where we want to attack. We want to get our model, get our programs, our curriculum, all of that, and to infiltrate the public system in some way, because that's where most children are. And we really believe that play-based learning, project-based learning should benefit all children. So I love having them come to our little school, but we also want to create avenues for us to be able to impact them wherever they are,
Mm.
so that they can all benefit. So I think having our kind of program and all of the other kinds of programs, they're the proof that it works, that people want what we are doing, and that there are more and more teachers who can and want to do these things. And I'm hoping people take notice, people who make big decisions for the huge machine of public education, hopefully that they begin to take notice. The more ground we take, the more notice I'm hoping, and we'll be able to make a bigger impact on all children.
Yeah, so that more young people can learn through play, even within conventional public schools. And, I think one sort of positive sign is I think the number really now is more like 85% of students are in public schools. We have about 10% in private schools, close to 6% homeschooling. And then if you add in charter schools, in addition to that, another 7%. But in traditional district schools, about, 85%, and then less if you include charters and magnets and all those kinds of things. So, and a lot of that is since COVID and
Yeah, that's true.
since more and more families are finding joy in homeschooling and other schooling alternatives, thanks in large part to founders like you who are building these models that families really, really desire. So I'm excited to see continued growth for you in Florida with your school, but also really excited to see how you're activating and encouraging other entrepreneurial teachers
Yeah.
to open their own programs. So it's exciting times. Are you optimistic? Do you feel like the future is bright?
I do. I am excited. I think more and more teachers and parents are waking up and realizing, leaving the regular school system is not so scary. A lot of families, who might before COVID have said we could never homeschool, we could never leave public school. They are not saying that anymore. They're feeling brave. And I think actually at the conference, when the Vela conference, Somebody had said, like when I'm going to butcher their quote, but they basically said, when you build something, you are lowering the cost of courage for somebody else. And I
Love
love
it.
that. I'd written it down and it's like, you're right. Every time we do something, every Wonder here, every little school, micro school that opens up lowers the cost of courage for another teacher, another parent to do it.
You are really an inspiration. I mean, that's what's so incredible about the work that you're doing individually with Wonder here, Tiffany, and then you as just a part of this education entrepreneurial movement, really inspiring others to go ahead and take their own entrepreneurial leaps. So I'm grateful to you, and I look forward to following your progress
No,
over the coming years. So, Tiffany Thanor, thank you so much for being on the Liberated podcast.
thank you so much.